Guys, we talk about being in tough economic times. Let me tell you something about collections in the church right now. On page 3 of the Daily Nation, what the faithful give to churches. Nairobi Chapel saw tithe and offerings rise from 551 million shillings in 2022 to 641.3 million in 2023. At Sitam, offerings rose from 1.9 billion in 2022 to 2.2 billion in 2023. It goes on to say All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi collections from tithes and offerings rose slightly from 193 million in 2023 to 196.1 million last year. You know, some of the reasons they say is, there was a very interesting statement that says when economic times are tough, people rely on hope and hope in the church, and therefore they will give. But Reverend Joya cautions and says church offerings are used for luxuries, supporting workshops and seminars and holidays and all that. No, that is corruption. God gives irrespective of whether he's given tithe or not. We're God's creation, we live by his grace, but we need to use that better. So he's pushing back and saying, okay, it's good, yes, but the way it's been used isn't the way the Bible says it should be used. Interesting topic there on page 3. Tithe is always a bit divisive.
We're talking about hundreds of millions, by the way, in some of these churches.
And in some of the cases, billions.
In some cases, like in the case of Sitam, Sitam is Christ is the answer, right? Ministries, Sitam. The offerings rose from 1.9 billion shillings in 2022 to 2.2 billion shillings in 2023. 2.2 billion shillings. What would be interesting is to actually see what this money does, right? I know in the reports, they usually now come and talk about the projects, the church projects and all. And I am saying this, I'm juxtaposing this particular conversation to the church in Kilifi by Ezekiel, right? So Ezekiel has this huge church in Kilifi, and in that church in Kilifi, there's a hotel, there's a school, and there's a university. And he sponsors a local school, okay? So from this church is sponsoring a local school in Mavueni, a local public school. They have built an international school within here, and they've built a university within here, okay?
And accommodation as well,
and accommodation and all those things. And Ezekiel has said before, so this is, people come, you access. You want a good school, you can access a good school here. Then we also we acknowledge that the people from around this neighborhood will not afford this school. The proceeds from this school are the ones that are going to be supporting the schools in the neighborhood. And so we have adopted a school, a public school, and we are supporting them. We're helping to construct classrooms, but also sponsoring the students out of this school to go to university, from student. I can see the link. Sasa hebu niambie, these churches that have hundreds of millions of shillings, hii pesa inatumika kufanya nini?
And I think that's what Reverend Joya is pushing back on. Some of them go to expanding their churches because their congregants multiply in number.
Right.
But others, unfortunately, if there isn't transparency, then many will believe if you're posting what you're buying and you're buying a new car and you're going on luxury hotels, it comes back to that triggering sort of like, what is it? Prosperity giving. And he even says it would be oppressive to pressure people to give if they don't have. You don't give 10% of something that you cannot live on. So tithing it's contentious and controversial. You've just mentioned somebody who, with your tithe, I'm going to do good. But even then, people still question. People still question. Like, is all this money really coming from tithe? Is it coming from somewhere else? Number one. Number two, for some of them, you're asking me to give what I don't have. So tithe and giving is contentious. That one is something that I've seen. You either fully believe in it or you're fully against it. Which side do you lie on, Latif? Is there a middle ground? Is there a middle ground to how you perceive tithe and offering?
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah. So, you know, when you, because if you believe, then you'll know that I want to tithe, or I want to do a sadaka. So it's church, it's do sadaka, and I can see what it's doing. In some churches, this is how we maintain the leadership of the church, the clergy. The clergy, for example, in the Anglican church, where I was brought up in the Anglican church, the clergy are paid a salary. And the upkeep, basically it's a stipend for upkeep. But it comes from all these things. It comes from this money. The maintenance of the church and all is basically coming from members contributing to it. In some other churches where you're told, toa kifungu, panda mbegu, and all this and the other, then you have to question, okay, so what's going on? What's happening around here? So my middle ground is that.
Okay.
It's, are you coercing people? Are you telling people, bring, give, shaming them? Okay, so umekuja tu hapo umekaa chini, umeletwa nini kwa hii kanisa? Unafikiri tutakula nini? And all. Or are you just saying, so this is it, you give, and you can see where it goes. I'm actually caught by something here. The All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi, it's one church. It's not, this All Saints Cathedral does not have branches. It's one church. And this one church saw its collections rise from 193 million to 193 million shillings.
To 196.
No, 193 million in 2023 to 196 million last year. 196 million shillings
in
one church, 1 year. Sitam is many churches. Nairobi Chapel is many churches.
This one is one.
Karura Community is many churches. All Saints Cathedral is one church, part of the Anglican Church. And we're not talking about the Diocese of Nairobi. No, one.
Depends. Remember, tithe is 10%. So if
But
somebody
also
makes
remember
500 million, if 10% is, think about it.
All Saints Cathedral also, although has a school, remember, it has a school and it has the meetings facilities. So meetings are very big at All Saints.
But 196 million, one church.